I sincerely believe that what Living Voice has done has advanced the state of the art. That we've been instrumental in encouraging other loudspeaker designers to roll up their sleeves and have a good go at making a horn-loaded loudspeaker, because there are quite a lot of them around now. But back when I first started doing hi-fi exhibitions, we would be the only horn-loaded loudspeaker there. You go to Munich today, there's loads of them, so it's quite encouraging that people are trying to chip away at that problem, and good luck to them. It's not easy. Back in the 90s, loudspeakers had gone down a kind of wormhole with staggeringly low sensitivity and really, really nasty loads that they presented to amplifiers. And that sort of went hand in hand with amplifier power being cheap and easy to design. You listen to that hi-fi from back in that day, and it just seemed like we're listening through a fog to something that might once have happened. And it seemed like audio had gone down the wrong road. A horn-loaded loudspeaker is quite different from a conventional loudspeaker where you look at the drive units on the front of the cabinet. They were the first loudspeakers. His master's voice, the trumpet with the needle on the shellac. Back in the early days of cinema and theatres, people didn't have amplifiers that were very powerful. They had valve amplifiers, used 10 watts maybe. You needed a loudspeaker that was very, very efficient. So you've got this drive unit in a restricted airspace down this, for the want of a word, trumpet, and you get acoustic amplification. So you don't have to rely so much on electronic amplification. You can use more sophisticated amplifiers that don't have multiple devices paralleled up on the output stage to get the power.
What year is it?
5x2, 1970. Horn-loaded loudspeakers evolved to a very high degree of sophistication.
Anatomical, like it might move.
It's like Huey and Dewey. Do you remember Huey and Dewey?
Yeah.
I thought we'd lost all of these.
Look at this, Kevin. Old Air Partners.
Wow.
I know.
So why don't I return to those roots and look at making a horn-loaded loudspeaker? Remember these? I do. I remember them very well. Yeah, that's it. Wow, they've had a bit of a life, I think.
They've seen some action.
1990 I made these. That was the first commercial loudspeaker I ever built. Yeah,
they're lovely.
These can be, I mean, this is easy to refurbish if you want to.
Yeah, we've tried them in a few places here, but they need a big room to sing in.
The downside with the horn is that you gain this huge sensitivity, but it can only do that over a relatively limited bandwidth. So, whereas you could get a bookshelf loudspeaker covering pretty much the full bandwidth with 2 drive units, with a horn speaker, you've gained all that sensitivity, but you're going to have to break the musical bandwidth up into more parts. You'll need a drive unit and a horn system for doing 20 Hz to 80 Hz. You'll need another drive unit and a horn to go from 80 Hz to 500 Hz. You'll need another horn to go from 500 to 5K, one from 5K to 15K, one from 50K to where bats can hear. So you end up with a 5-way loudspeaker as opposed to a 2-way. And the big challenge for any loudspeaker designer, but a horn-loaded loudspeaker designer in particular, is to have each of those elements seamlessly integrated and to have the same tonal values and the same dynamic values as you move up through the frequency range, so that you do get that belief that there's a captured singular event there. You can't attribute a sense of mechanical process to what you're hearing.
What I think is extraordinary about these speakers is, as opposed to a lot of other speakers where you always try to find the optimal position to sit in to get, the absolutely pinpoint perfect soundstage. Here you don't feel that sense. You can walk around and the music surrounds you.
On the Vox Olympian, the early cabinets were made out of Baltic birch. We then had a cabinet made out of a particular density of beech laminate, and that was just a phenomenal difference. Developed the HF horns out of aluminium initially, then evolved that into bronze. The difference between cast aluminium and cast bronze was very, very pleasing. Oh dear, it's quite expensive. You think, well, forget the end price. Let's just make something that does absolutely what we want to do without any compromise, apart from possibly making it look beautiful. And you think, well, I don't want the aesthetics to dictate the sound, but we can make it look beautiful by having a form-follow-function aesthetic. The horn geometries are products of Fibonacci nature. You've got plenty of golden ratio naturally running through it because of that. So you can end up with a form that is celebratory of its functionality. There was an architect stroke interior designer that called Ruhlmann who was very celebrated, and he did beautiful interiors. One of his signature blends of woods, Macassar ebony, Ripplana grey, Amboina burl, they're almost like octaves apart, this sort of ripple gold, then down into the the deep, deep chocolate of the Macassar ebony, and then that fiery burl of the reddish Amboina, and they have a sort of palette sympathy with each other. If you look closely at the Vox Olympian, I mean, the workmanship is really quite extraordinary, and there aren't that many people in the world that have those skill sets. And that's one of the things I've really enjoyed about this, is finding the best people to join forces with to produce something that in itself is more than the sum of its parts again, just like the system should be more than the sum of its parts. There's a hell of a difference between a horn-loaded loudspeaker and a reflex-loaded loudspeaker, and they're, different disciplines in some ways. I got more and more interested in realistically scaled loudspeakers that had those performance virtues and didn't have to cost the earth and didn't need to be the size of a small tower block. The Vox Olympian informed the other speakers in the sense that you want a oneness of presentational quality with no differences or seams or joins. I am really pleased that people offer that they think that if they listen to an Auditorium R25 anniversary, which is our most basic speaker, and you work up that hierarchy of loudspeakers to the RW4 model, people listen to those. They listen to the R80, which is this 80-litre mid-treble mid two-way, and then they listen to the Vox Palladian and the Vox Olympian and say that they can hear a commonality in qualities of musical reproduction. And it proves to you that your musical goals are being realised. And I find that very, very pleasing. It's about the music and it's about the musical experience. It's a passion, obsession that I've had for all these years.
Yes.
It's great, isn't it?